And this is not only is it about companionship, but yeah, you can. You've had lots of romances develop, but it takes that
Yep.
pressure off when the focus is on companionship versus, are you my soulmate?
Yes.
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for tuning in to Second Act TV. I'm so happy to welcome Andrew Dowling back to Second Act today, all the way from Sydney, Australia. You're in Sydney, right?
I am in Sydney. That's right.
It's terrific to see you. Andrew has been in Second Act before. He is the CEO and founder of Stitch.net, the online community, as well as, and I'm teasing you about it last time, the in-person community that is there to find companionship after 50. So anyway, glad to have you back, Andrew.
It's great. And I should mention actually, Silke, we had someone sign up only last week, a couple of members in Chicago, and I asked them how they found out about Stitch, and they mentioned your show. So they watch it all the time.
Oh, that's great. That's great to
Yeah.
hear. I'm glad that we're making impact. Well, and that's what we want to do today. It's funny, but I watched our other two interviews and they were posted in like early February. My, has our world changed.
Yes. Yes.
And one of
100
the
years
things
ago.
you said then that, that what makes Stitch different is that, is that drive to get offline and meet in person. Well, that's unfortunately not the case. And as we sit here taping this or recording this today, a lot of parts of the world are shutting down again. And there are so many people dealing with trying to find companionship, connecting with loneliness, which we have a whole other segment and we won't dwell on that today, other than to
Yeah.
say you are not alone if you're listening to this today. And Andrew, I want you to explain how Stitch was affected, how it shifted, and how people all over the world are now getting involved more than ever before. So I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, it's such a big topic. I mean, the one thing about the pandemic, I think, it really highlighted that everyone's going through the same thing. So for the first time, certainly in my memory, maybe in history, we're all experiencing something together, everyone around the world. And so I think everyone can relate. One thing that we've always talked about is, the importance of building those social connections, whether it's romance or friendship, but it's so important. And the research kind of tells us why it impacts our health. Suddenly, when the pandemic happened, everyone said, "Oh, I get it now. I understand." So it has actually helped really raise the awareness for a lot of people. But you're right. For those who don't know, so Stitch is a community for helping members find companionship, and a lot of what happens in Stitch is in the real world, events and activities, people getting out there doing things, interest groups, and so on. But of course, as soon as coronavirus hit, particularly with the first lockdowns that we started to see, there was suddenly everything came to a screeching halt. We often work with, could be local government, other organisations, and everybody was like, okay, we have to stop. We don't want anyone getting out there in person. All the stuff that Stitch was about, we had to really sit back and think, oh, what do we do? And at the same time, all of our members are saying, I'm going stir crazy. I'm just isolated. I don't know what to do. I need to connect. So it was a pretty tough time, and it still is a tough time for so many people. But I feel as though there's been some silver linings to those clouds. So for Stitch, we had to reinvent a lot of what we did in the community. So we put in addition to the real world activities, and we still have a lot of that happening. We've got some areas of the world are lucky enough to not be in lockdown and coming out of it. So in Australia, for example, we feel like we're coming out of the worst part of the pandemic, and there's a lot of stuff happening. But as you say, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere, things are really starting to ramp back up again. So we built a whole range of new capabilities for the community around getting together virtually, whether that's large groups, small groups, our discussions, our worldwide groups, all this sort of stuff. And what happened was kind of remarkable. Instead of Stitch being focused on meeting people just because they lived in your local area, It was much more around meeting people based on how connected you felt to them. Because the thing about online is it's not quite the same as in person, but it does mean that it doesn't matter where someone is, whether you're in Los Angeles or in Sydney, I have the same relationship to you. So suddenly there's this great level playing field. And we had so many members suddenly becoming active and engaged in communities that we hadn't built a community yet. So in small towns, in regional areas, in new cities, even in new countries. And as a result, we kind of ended up having, I think we're about 4 times the level of kind of engagement and activity in the community now than we were when we last spoke. So while it's still been a terrible time, certainly for the community, it has had a lot of upsides, and we've been seeing some really, really wonderful things people are doing together as a result.
Yeah, I think that's so terrific. We've done videos, of course, we do lots of videos on dating, and and all the frustration that's associated with that. And because of coronavirus, we've done virtual dates, all that kind of stuff. How to look good on video. I mean, this is a huge topic now. It's going to stay like that for a while. And when I went through your site here over the last week or so in preparation for our interview, I guess I want people to know, if they haven't seen it, just kind of picture a dating site. And then there's so much more, you get to choose, whether you want to meet men or women for friendship or for romance. And then, of course, is that whole, you do a lot better explaining all this.
No, you're doing well.
Just trying to picture it. But I love the part about these global groups, which I didn't see before, if I'm correct. And there's and you can do anything.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We were all about meeting people in person. Our interest groups when we spoke last time, they were only local to your own area. And then it started, members were giving us suggestions about, what they would like from Stitch. And believe it or not, the first idea for some of these kind of more global interest groups came from a woman in regional Australia. She said to me that she had an interest in learning to play the ukulele, of all things. And I remember thinking, and she wanted to create a global group. She said, I've met a couple other people on the Stitch discussion forums, which were global, and they're interested too, and we'd like to get together. Could we create a group? Now, I remember at the time thinking, she's not going to get very many people interested in ukulele, but it's an example of something. And she lived in a small town, a really small town, about 8 hours drive from Sydney. She'd been to Sydney in a couple of times where we have a very vibrant community and come along to events. So she had the idea of what Stitch was, but there's nothing in her area. And anyway, so we thought it was a good idea. We added global groups. There's regional groups that, you can choose who you like to connect with. And the moment that we launched it, she wrote back and said, that's fantastic. I won't create my group until I've got a teacher, though, because I need to get someone who can teach me ukulele. 2 hours later, she sent another message saying, I found a teacher. She's one of your members in Canada. We were discussing in the forums. I mentioned this. Anyway, they've now got this really, really active group. They've got about, I think, 60 people in it around the world. They meet every week, called the Stitched Ukesters, and play the ukulele and chat, and it's social and so on. But that's an example of, if you'd asked me the sort of things that people would be setting up, I would not have predicted a ukulele playing group. But, I think it's a great example of you're only limited by your imagination. And in her group in particular, there are people from all sorts of towns that we really didn't have a community. And as a result, actually, they got connected with some members around Australia. And because Australia has come out of the lockdown largely, a whole bunch of them organised a road trip to her town, stayed for a few days. She took them all around and did this stuff. And they all wrote back and said to me, look, this wouldn't have happened if we didn't have this remote stuff. And please, Andrew, please, as life returns to normal, we don't want to lose this thing, because it's not, in many ways, it's not an alternative to in-person interaction. It's an addition to. And often that it provides a pathway where you can meet people in a really safe, easy way like this. We have these big kind of get-togethers and fast friendship events and all sorts of things. And that opens the door for meeting in person in a way that's it's actually worked really well. We've seen a great kind of response from members about the kind of the emotional experience of what it's like.
I love it. That is such a great story, and it really illustrates what it is that we can do now. And
Yeah.
it does, and it can lead to an in person interaction. Couple questions came to mind just now when you were talking. That you said that somebody joined in one of your groups, and I thought this was really cool. That you, and of course there's other volunteers who have weekly or monthly or whatever it is scheduled events
Yeah.
that they're Zoom based or something like Zoom, to where a bunch of people join and you kind of direct those events. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we do have volunteers. A lot of the events happen on Stitch. It's not really volunteering. It's just people who would like to do something, and they suggest that thing. So there's sometimes people join and they're not really sure what's happening in their area, but we just explain that if you want to do something, suggest it. People will come. Other members are out there with the same interests, and if you've got an interest in something, then away you go. One of my favourite ones that I see regularly is he's a slightly elderly gentleman in Houston, and he just posts a dinner event for 4 people, I think every week maybe, and they do it over Zoom. So it's a very small number of people. They have a glass of wine, and it's just a way of having a social, rather than dining on your own, you're having a social event like a dinner party. And knowing him, he's a very, very elegant man, so he probably dresses up and for the occasion and so on. So that sort of thing. It's all social events and activities. We have members who organise game nights and things like that. But I do regular ones for much larger groups. And so every month I do one for all our members in the US. If they want to come along, we do what's called a Fast Friendship Quick Stitch event. So, and I think the biggest one I had had about 150 people, but then we break them up into these small groups of 4 or 5 people. They get 10 minutes to chat, talk about how they're coping with the pandemic or anything. We normally have a bit of a theme. It's in the evening, so they have a glass of wine, or not, or it could be a cup of tea. But it's just a way of them connecting and forming. And what's remarkable, so we had one actually last week, and I had these 2 ladies from Chicago, and one of them happened to mention that she is planning on moving to the Dallas-Fort Worth area later this year. And she thought Stitch would be a great way of maybe could she connect with people in other areas? And I was explaining absolutely. And then one of these other women on the call said, I live in Fort Worth, and I used to come from Chicago. Why don't we connect and I'd love to introduce you. So those sorts of things happen all the time, those chance connections. So that's an example of the events that I organise, but a lot more of the activities are just our members doing things they'd like to do and have fun at. In fact, we're about to have some awards for the people who've done the most in the community, and I was amazed to see one of our members in the last 60 days went to 78 events, that's a very vibrant social life in the middle of the pandemic. She's in Sacramento.
Oh, how fun. Well, obviously, I mean, especially virtually, you just do just about anything you can imagine,
That's
and
right.
I love that dinner, with a small dinner that could be with people from all over the world. I mean, there's just you
Yep.
can have so much fun with this, and if you're listening to this and it sounds good, I so encourage you to go check out Stitch. I know I don't want to get we'll have membership information listed, but basically you can do it for free, and then there's other levels of membership, but nothing like the dating sites. Of course you're supported. That's how you're supported, is through
That's
memberships.
right. Yeah, so we have a free membership because we want to help as many people as we can, but of course we have to keep the community running. Software costs a lot of money to develop, so we ask anyone who really supports Stitch to become a full member. We also take donations as well from members, but it's really our memberships that keep the community running. But you can be a free member and come to our public events, but there are a lot more events and activities that you can come to. A lot of the one-on-one connections and so on that you get benefits from being a full member. But there's something for everyone.
Yeah, and I think you have well over 100,000 members. Where are you at?
Yep.
Where?
Yes, yep. In fact, it's growing. It's really growing now. I think it's hard to say whether it's because people have heard about us a little bit more, or because as a result of the pandemic, people are more focused on, well, how can I meet people? How do I stay social? But it's something we've been talking about for a long time, and we're really welcoming. It surprises me every week when I see where people are signing up and getting engaged, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Well, I love finding, I found Andrew just doing some research on online dating, and I just stumbled across this, and I thought, God, I get so much grief, not me personally, but we got so many comments about the frustration with that. And this is not only is it about companionship, but yeah, you've had lots of romances develop, but it takes that pressure off when the focus is on companionship versus, are you my soulmate?
Yes. Yeah, I always, because we do a bit of a focus on the romantic side of things, and I'm always recommending people that we should be leading with doing the things we enjoy, being your most natural self, and then you will meet other people who enjoy those things too. You'll find people who you connect with. And if they turn out not to be your soulmate, you've still had a great time. Whereas if you go on a date with the sole purpose is to find out, is this person for me, or vice versa, they are judging you and being judged, and it's not that person that feels like, well, why did I do that? Whereas that's, that it's a little bit unnatural, I think, compared to just going and being part of something that's fun. And in fact, some of the most surprising relationships develop from people who live in different cities. That's always surprising me. And I think because it forces them to focus not so much on, they get more quickly into who are you and what are you like and what are your interests, and they communicate more. But we say that a lot.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is just try it. If you're thinking about this at all, if you're lonely, if you're looking for companionship, this is such a terrific alternative. And we're coming to the end. We actually went longer than we usually do. I love talking with you. I'll be sure to share all this with our viewers. Is there anything you'd like to add before we close out?
I think you've covered it really well. I mean, there's so many things we'd love to highlight some of our member stories, I think, in a future episode, because they're so inspiring. Because I guess the one thing I would say, it's not just about the fun part, but we've also got a lot of people who are struggling. And one of the big growth things for us this year, we've seen a lot of people kind of setting up interest groups for people to help others. So there's people who've lost a life partner during COVID. It's a really tough thing. So we've got widows and widowers groups, and seeing people help each other through that process. I think that's the other thing to bear in mind. If you are having a tough time, there are other people out there who will open the door and help you out, provided you kind of take that first step. So hopefully people get that message.
Oh, that is lovely. I love that. And I guess what I'd like to say is when we do post this video, some of your members who will watch it, leave comments and perhaps also encourage people to maybe join in, because there is even with a group like this, there's sometimes some hesitancy. Will I be accepted? There's just a lot of unknowns, and I know you guys are so welcoming. So I'm going to try to do whatever I can to get over that hump. And the technology part of it, as you said, is the least is the least bit. If you can get on iPhone or whatever, you can get on Stitch, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I always say we get judged as, oh, if you're older, you don't use technology as well. But I've got young developers on my team, and they always have problems with their audio. But the trick is, if you keep on persisting and you muddle through, you get there eventually. Just don't give up.
Yeah, exactly. Andrew, thank you so much. It was fun talking with you. I know you had a big party last night.
Not me personally. My teenage son finishing school, we hosted.
Not a big one. You stayed within, but I'm so happy to hear that the restrictions in Australia are lifting. I so hope that happens on our part of the world here soon. And I look so forward to talking with you in upcoming segments, Second Act TV.
I look forward to it too, Silky. Stay safe, and best wishes to all your viewers in pretty challenging time, but we'll get through it.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. And if there's a topic that you'd like to have us cover, please go to our website, secondact.tv. We have a little red suggestion box on the upper right-hand corner of our site. Just drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.